Hi, I wanted to share a little bit with you about my first book, the one behind me on the backdrop. And I do have another book out called Grief Unveiled. This one is the story of my own journey through grief from the time my husband had a stroke, through caring for him, his death, and my dealing with the huge changes in my own life after he died. And then on my journey of understanding and training and education on what grief and trauma are all about, how they affect us, and what we can do about it to really come through that process in a constructive way, building a new life based on, the things that have happened to us. So, if you go back into my channel, you will see a few videos just sharing little snippets out of each of the books. And you don't have to subscribe to go to my channel and look through the archives, but it would be wonderful if you would, because sharing, liking, and being a subscriber all help to send the message along to other people who can discover the content and hopefully benefit from it. So here we go. So this book I have broken up into three parts, and I consider when we go through this journey, we're really, the heroes of our own lives. So there are many kinds of life challenges and traumas that we will necessarily have to navigate. And that's what a hero does. A hero just steps up, however broken they feel they are. They step up to the challenge and work their way through it and recognize that there are supporters along the way, as well as, the dragon of grief. That's what I've called it here. So, part one, I talk about the peaks and valleys of the hero's adventure. And in this section, I really talk about my own experiences. The second part is called Meeting the Dragon, and it's really at the point of the trauma happening and the aftermath and those early stages when it's like our life is just really, we have no idea what just happened to us and how we navigate our way through that. And then part three, I call Returning with Treasures. So typically, the hero's story typically is that they head out into an adventure and they don't really know what it is that's going to happen to them along the way, who they're going to meet, what challenges they'll encounter, but they're prepared for whatever reason that's of value to them to go out and meet the challenge as best they can. But usually at the end of that challenge, there are gifts and treasures and winnings that they earn because of the work they've done and their contribution to the cause. And they can bring those back to their own life and back to the community they live in. So that's the story arc. This one, this chapter that I'm going to share with you is chapter 5, the introduction to grief. And I'm not going to read the whole chapter. I'm going to read the first maybe 2/3 of it. So here we go. The death of my sweet man was my introduction to the dragon named grief. I had been through a lot since his stroke 3.5 years earlier. I had been thrust into the role of home caregiver, a role which I had no knowledge, no training for, and no examples from which to draw. My introduction to heart-wrenching loss began the day he experienced his stroke. The stroke took away the man I knew, the companion on whom I relied to help me make sense of the world around us. The man I loved was still there in his physical form, just in a different way. I don't think I experienced anticipatory grief, since the idea of him dying didn't really enter my mind while he was alive. He had been entirely dependent on me in the few months before his death. His body began to show significant signs of failure, and my main questions were beginning to form. Would I need to find alternative in-home care while I continued to work, or would I need to start looking for a care facility for him? And did I have the financial wherewithal to stop work and stay home and be his full-time home caregiver? Then he was gone. His death was sudden, completely unexpected. He died in front of me twice. First, when he collapsed on the parking lot, then in the hospital. I was wholly unprepared for what lay ahead. I felt that I had to navigate both the medical and community support systems on my own. People were as helpful as they could be within the professional roles they occupied. The medical team with whom I met before Grant came home said that he would be referred to outpatient rehab once he was home. That didn't happen. He was assigned a caseworker who arranged for an occupational therapist to come to our home. She went through a detailed questionnaire with us and suggested adjustments, such as grab bars in the shower, walkers, and a cane. I had asked the occupational therapist to help me find out why Grant hadn't received any contact about going to outpatient rehab. Now, 4 or 5 months out from his coming home, she was able to make an appointment with the unit Grant and I both attended. The doctor reviewed Grant's brain scans and showed me not only the areas that his major stroke affected, but the areas that had been numerous smaller, older strokes. Grant was now considered too cognitively impaired to benefit from any further rehab in the healthcare system. I wouldn't have known this if I hadn't insisted on pursuing the question. It's important for his emotional and mental improvement to find ways to fill his days while I was at work. I had to probe and prod his caseworker to enroll him into as many adult day programs as the system would allow. The church and not-for-profit organizations were much more amenable, but still I had to find them and meet with them in order to find a good fit for Grant that matched his degree of impairment. I mention this in order to point out that we who are put in charge of our loved ones must be prepared to advocate for their physical and emotional well-being in all institutional and social systems that are available to us. Grant died on a Sunday. He collapsed last time while getting into our car. This time he didn't get up. He wasn't conscious. In fact, he was turning blue. I called 911. The paramedics were there within 5 minutes. They worked on him right there on the ground and brought him back. Then they rushed him and me off to hospital. There he died. So that's a little excerpt talking about his, when this all began, really, his stroke and his experience in hospital and my experience when he was sent home. And caring for him for those years in between. And then his death was so unexpected. It really turned my world upside down. And, I guess for a long time, I felt this real indignity that he had died twice. Now you might say, how could that be? Well, he did die. His heart stopped and he was turning blue. Blood wasn't circulating, wasn't getting oxygen to his brain. The paramedics came and did what they do to revive a person. And Grant did revive, but he never gained consciousness. So he was in eMERGE for maybe a couple of hours. And I was with him, fortunately. I was able to be with him. And the doctor said to me that I could speak to him because it's usually the last hearing is usually the last sense to go. And so I did get that grace in his last moments. But even so, he died then, finally. And my life was now different again, a whole new set of circumstances to deal with. So I hope that even if in your world it isn't your spouse that died, and certainly not in the same way, may have been someone else that you care for, but grief can be as strong in losing something else that we really attach ourselves to: our home, our city, our community, a job, financial resources, a whole host of things. Our own health, for example. Suddenly we don't have the body and the life that we thought we were going to have. So we may grieve the event that happened and the aftermath of it, but we're also grieving the life that we've lost because that event happened. So if you find that intriguing and want to know more, my books are available on Amazon and also at my website, Let's Talk Together. And I hope to hear from you. And actually, if you want to share your comments, your story in the comment section, or you can send me a message through my website, I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much.